We're going to get started in about 5 minutes. We're going to give time for Miss Lorraine to get to her seat. How you doing? We're going to call this to order in 1 minute. In 1 minute. Silence your cell phones and take your seats. It's 6:35. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Esri,
Here.
Farney,
Here.
Fava, Fortato, Greer,
Here.
Hanauer Friedman,
Here.
Lokshin,
Here.
Pugh, Rodriguez,
Here.
Rogers, Sexton, Storr, Solar,
Here.
Thorsland,
Here.
Vantage Theronot,
Here.
Wiggs,
Here.
Wilson,
Here.
Cagle,
Here.
Carter, Cowart, Crane, Locke.
Here. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda and addenda? Sexton, second by Thorsland. Any discussion? Mr. Esri.
Would we want to move the closed session up somewhere? We don't in this particular
We're going to
case.
leave it at the
Okay.
end.
I
There's,
just-
yeah.
We've discussed in the past about having to pay, but that's fine. If we have other reasons not to, that's fine.
We can discuss it if you'd like to make that motion. Okay. Mr. Sullivan.
We had at some point changed the rules to list the public section as public input instead of participation. We're gonna regularly make that change at some point.
You are correct. Yeah, we'll make sure that that's there, and we'll amend it right now to make it public input. All right. I also would just like to point out that it's in 6, we have EFEF. I would make a friendly motion that we make it EFGH instead. And that's all. If we had a second on that.
We also in 7 have A, B, C, D, D.
All right. So we'll make that DEF. All right. So I've moved. Stephanie, is that a second to make these changes? Yes, maybe. We'll call it a second. All right. Any discussion of those changes further? All right. All in favor of amending the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All in favor of the agenda as amended? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. Moving on. Have a motion to approve the minutes. Mr. Farney, second by, not everybody all at once, Ms. Greer. All right. Any discussion? All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes. I have no slips for public input. They didn't like that it said participation. Is there anyone in the public who would wish to address the board? Going once, going twice, sold. Board member communications. Any communications from the board? This is Mr. Wilson.
I always have something. All right, first of all, happy tax day.
Boo.
So today is the 70th birthday of tax day on April 15th. So happy 70 years old. Also, happy Patriots Day. So on the 19th, which is Saturday, will be the 250th anniversary of the shot heard around the world at Lexington and Concord, which kicked off the Revolutionary War and our deliverance from the British Empire. And then finally, this Sunday, there's about 2.9 billion Christians on this planet, which is about a third of the population. And it's been almost 2,000 years since Resurrection Sunday, where Christians celebrate the resurrection of their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, following his redemptive work on the cross. So anyway, happy Easter or Resurrection Sunday to those that celebrate Easter.
Any other communications? Dr. Storr.
Thank you, Chair Locke. On Monday, April 21st, we will have the first Champaign County carbon dioxide sequestration activities task force. And I call this to your attention because we're going to have at the first 2 meetings distinguished scientists and engineers that will come and talk about various aspects of carbon dioxide sequestration. This is, in Illinois, we have one of the foremost experiments in the world going on in Decatur. We're also going to have speakers to talk about the 2016 Man-Love gas field leak, something that I've always wanted to know about, and we will have a good deal of information. And I will say that I have had, through the Freedom of Information Act, got some technical documents that some of my colleagues haven't yet seen. If anybody wants some of those, I am pleased to provide those upon request. We're also going to have George Roadcap is going to come and will speak on the Muhammad Aquifer as an agenda item that was just added barely an hour and a half ago. And those of you who are familiar with George's work know that his 2001 study or report on the Muhammad Aquifer is kind of is the basis or the standard against what we currently know. So if you have an interest in these, we hope that it'll be broadcast live and available on YouTube, or you can come here at 4 o'clock on Monday, April 21st. Thank you.
Any other communications? Mr. Thorsland?
Yes, two things. One, it's springtime, and Aaron will second on this. It's that time of the year where a couple of things come out of the woodwork and start to drive up and down the country roads. One is farmers and the other is Harleys. Some of us ride all year, but the Harley guys come out now. So be careful, pay attention, be patient, especially with the people with the big equipment. The minute the ground is dry, Aaron will attest, everybody's going to be rolling. And you just have to understand that they're not on the road all the time, but when they are, they're big, they're heavy, and just be careful. And be careful of those people that are getting the rust out of their motorcycle skills on our roads that apparently are repaired now by putting little round pebbles all over them, which is cheap perhaps, but maybe it will cost more money. Secondly, we didn't plan this, Jeff, but thank you for bringing up Patriots Day 250 years ago. We emancipated ourselves from a king. One of the things we did was write an important document. Of course, the Constitution is one of them, but another, and by the way, we swear to the Constitution when we become board members, was the Declaration of Independence. It listed 27 grievances against the king. 4 of them are particularly relevant. Number 16, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. Number 17, for imposing taxes on us without our consent. Number 18, for depriving us, in many cases, of the benefit of a jury trial. Number 19, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. So, I know we like to talk about the founders, and we like to talk about history. Let's not relive it. Let's do our best to make sure that these grievances are still relevant today and not ignored. And that's all I have.
Anyone else? All right, moving along. Justice and Social Services, Chair Rogers.
Thank you, Chair Locke. So first we have the monthly reports, which can be found on the department's websites. We have probation or court services reports for February 2025, the public defender's report for March of 2025, and the emergency management agency report for March of 2025. We also, item B, we have Rosecrans reentry reports. And they can, the financial report and the program report for February of 2025, which you can find in your packet. And then we also have a presentation. You wanna come
Dave
up?
Kellerhalls, come on up. You can get your presentation set up, and when you're ready, push the button. Red means go.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having us again. It's hard to believe it's been a year since the last time, but such is time. And I had planned on having a co-pilot with me today, as you can see, but she was under the weather, so I'm gonna do my best to fly solo today. And today I'm here to talk about our reentry program that you all fund. And so we're going to do an quick overview about the program and the services offered, a data summary for the year. It's actually a little bit more than a year. It's from when we when we revamped the reporting form. Some of the barriers that we experience, the individuals that we serve experience, as well as the program. I'm going to touch on a highlight, and then a quick success story to end the presentation. So, and can you guys hear me okay? I can hear myself fine, but it's okay. So the reentry program offers an array of various services, some within the program itself and many that are attached to our other services offered at Rosecrans and the many resources and agencies in the community. I put the, probably the most important and most challenging right in front, and that's housing. So helping them apply for vouchers that they qualify for, finding applicable housing options that they're eligible for. And we'll talk about that in the barrier section later. Assisting with creating resumes for employment, as well as their educational needs. We put some grocery shopping, but that also, many of the various independent living skills that we all take for granted as they're coming out of the institution. There's many things that they need assistance with, from meal planning, meal prep, navigating the community for the various resources that can benefit them, budgeting, basically all the things you can think of that make you successful living independently and navigating the world around you. Transportation is a big piece. Most individuals don't have their own transportation when they get out, or know the public transportation options or have access to a pass. Applying for the various benefits, whether that be unemployment, Social Security, income, SNAP, health insurance. And those are things that we hit right away, right after that first meeting with them to assess all their needs. That and housing are the two that we really hit hard. As well as the forms of identification, ID, birth certificates. We'll talk a little bit about some of the barriers for us as a program in that area as well. Medical services, ensuring that from a primary care standpoint or any existing medical concerns that they may have coming out or being addressed quickly, as well as behavioral health, so mental health and substance use, which we can do in-house, of course. Moral recognition therapy and anger management groups, which are offered through our criminal justice program that's funded through the Mental Health Board. So those occur at the probation office, and as well as those that are in the Champaign County Jail. Psychiatry is another thing we're lucky to have. We were several years when I first started in 2021, we didn't have our own, and we were contracting with Promise Healthcare to do that. So it's nice to have our own providers in-house. They are telehealth, but the individual comes to our Walnut office in person to get roomed by the nurse and vitals, and then the provider themselves is virtual. New to our region, at least, is MAR services, or you may hear it as MAT, so medicated assisted recovery or medicated assisted treatment. And that's for individuals that are suffering from substance use issues to help curb cravings and prevent severe withdrawal and detox symptoms. All right. I did a quick data summary where I'll have March out to you guys very soon. And you've got February in front of you. So from January 24, which was the first month we did the new reporting system and switched from quarterly to monthly reporting, we had a total up until this past month. I pulled that data from this month's report. A total of 27 admissions and a total of 26 discharges. Of those 26 discharges, we had 7 successful. So that means they completed all of the items within their service plan or treatment plan, whatever you want to call it. And not necessarily that they're no longer being serviced by Rosecrans, but in terms of the needs and the goal of that program, they've accomplished those goals to be able to continue on an outpatient basis, or be completely discharged from Rosecrans services. We had 14 against medical advice. I suspect that's a little bit higher than it really should be. I think we often, when we have a very strict discharge policy when it comes to clientele at Rosecrans. And so it's like, if you miss a certain amount of sessions, or, we can't get a hold of you. So I think we needed to adjust that for this population, knowing it's more difficult to get them engaged. And sometimes, while we don't think they've accomplished everything in their treatment plan, in their mind, they've got everything they need to move on. So, from their perspective, there may have been more that completed their time with us. We had 3 individuals, unfortunately, that were incarcerated during that time out of the 26 discharges. One moved out of the county, and one was not recommended for services at the time. They were not just recently released; they had a lot already accomplished, and at that time did not have needs that within that program for them. And so the recidivism rate for the year at 10.6%. And so that was the total admissions, plus we had 5 continuing from the previous prior to January 24, divided by those incarcerated. So we'd love to have 0 incarcerated, of course, but we do like seeing that lower percentage. Some barriers. So like I said, I broke it down to participants and then barriers for the program. So with our participants, housing is probably one of the the biggest barriers for them, and one of the most challenging things for us to assist them with, due to a variety of challenges, the availability, the affordability, discrimination, housing discrimination with landlords, even despite some ordinances in, for example, Urbana that are trying to prevent that, it's still an issue. Employment, as you know, with a background, it can be much more challenging. However, with agencies like RPC and several other that I'm not going to remember right now, they have a whole list of employers in the area that will get them employed despite their background, which is really, really great. We have a lot more success with that than housing. Once they are employed, having an affordable wage is always a challenge too. So they're excited to be working again and earning, but not being able to make ends meet is always a challenge. Transportation, as I spoke about earlier, technology and internet access, which you won't always initially think as a barrier, but it can be if they don't have access to internet. Most applications for work and many other benefits are online, and they have to have a computer or a device, and going to the library every time isn't always feasible or convenient. So there's a lot of agencies, and we've had a few present at our Reentry Council that focus solely on making that more accessible. We had one last month that if when they engage in the program, they get a Chromebook, and then when they complete it, they actually get to keep it. So lots of great programs out there for that, and helping them get a little bit ahead in their recovery and journey. People, places, things, as we know, especially with those with substance use disorders, there's a lot of benefits to coming back to the community that they came from, and knowing how to navigate and knowing people, but sometimes those people, places, and things can also be a trigger for relapse. And so helping them navigate that while they're back in their old stomping grounds. Their own communication skills can be a barrier for them as they're trying to get things accomplished on their own, working with various entities or the legal system. It can be challenging to get your goals, get your needs met if you don't have a good communication skill set to do so. So that's something that we work with them on as well. And then just an overall lack of structure and supports coming out of a very structured and routine environment, and to, you're on your own now, good luck. It's quite an adjustment to do so. So helping them find those natural, healthy supports and develop a structure and routine that can help them be successful. So some of the other barriers or challenges for us in the program, I think specifically for Rosecrans, is the stigma that's still associated with behavioral health. I've seen it improve quite a bit over my 15-ish years in behavioral health, but I think for this population, it's still very strong, especially in the male population. So I think many individuals coming out, it's like, I've been in there for however long, stayed sober, worked on my mental health. I don't need that now, or, maybe just an overall denial of it. And so I think when they come out and they see options of engaging with Rosecrans versus, first followers, or when recovery where it's more peer support oriented, they may lean more towards the peer support, which is wonderful. We've got some peer support programs within Rosecrans as well, because we know how beneficial it is. But we also know that it's peer support combined with the professional services that really does the trick, and it's a little harder to convince them of that. So trying to work closely with first followers and Win Recovery, and they're really good about letting us know when they've got an individual that is kind of beyond their ability to help, but also encouraging them, even if they're manageable in the peer supports. There's always an opportunity to improve their mental health, their behavior, or substance use issues with us. So working closely with them to make sure we're wrapping around those individuals to get them everything that they need. IDOC release resources, I couldn't think of a better way to put this, and it's not a bad thing in that there is now programs that are allowing individuals that get their ID and other important documents on their way out, which is wonderful. We love that. But it's one more reason why they're like, I don't need you guys right now. I've got my IDs. I'm gonna go, get connected with, first followers. I don't need any behavioral health services. And so trying to change that narrative and explain that, you don't have to have behavioral health issues to engage in this program. You can just be sort of reentry status, and we're gonna help you regardless. Staff turnover has been a challenge, not just in reentry, but agency-wide, and I think probably community-wide, statewide. It's ebbed and flowed since COVID when it was really bad, but it's still a challenge with the new workforce and other factors. Cold handoffs. So oftentimes we've got IDOC or probation or others that are like, I'm definitely getting the word out. We've got your brochures here. We're going to make sure these individuals come seek you out. But there's not always that warm handoff of, sometimes there needs to be a little bit of hand-holding to help make sure they get there, and that when they get to the front desk or whoever the contact is, effectively communicating what they need and why they're there. So continuing to work on that with IDOC contacts and within the council as well. And then just participant engagement, always a bit of a challenge, not only just their own level of engagement, but being able to reach them after that first contact. Phone numbers change, addresses change. So it can be difficult sometimes to maintain someone in the program and keep contact with them if they're not willing to reach out, if we can't reach them. So,
Dave, while you're switching slides, I'm just going to butt in really fast.
Sure.
It's the beauty of being chair. I can do that. We have a very heavy docket here, so you don't feel the need to read every slide to us. Just
Go a little
you can
faster
you can hit us on every point. That would be
Perfect.
awesome. Thank you.
Perfect. I appreciate that. One of the biggest highlights I think for the year was our reentry resource fair. If any of you got to attend that at the MTD, it was great. As you can see, we had about 40 attendees, 17 vendors, 4 sponsors. Some good feedback there about, we had a post survey that we got some good feedback on. One of the things that we never thought of was, I felt like we marketed it pretty well. We didn't have any signage at MTD on the first floor, which would have been nice for people that weren't aware of it, saw the sign, come on upstairs. So, but a good turnout, and I think everyone really enjoyed it. Success story, this was going to be one of Karen's sections. From what I recall from it, we had an individual that struggled to find employment due to his background, was limited in physical ability, was seeking Social Security income that wasn't coming very quickly, but one of the things he really loved to do was drive, and he was good at it and enjoyed it, and got into a local program to help him get his CDL and he's got it now, and he's on the road looking to save up money and have his own truck, and got some fairly decent housing, and just one of the reasons that we do this, and loving to hear those stories, and someone excited and rejuvenated that they have an opportunity to get back on track. So, any questions or comments?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you. I have two questions. One is, I think you had 27 this first quarter in the program, 26 went successfully past it. Is it normally about 27 a quarter? Is that what you're seeing?
Unfortunately, those numbers that I showed up there were for the year, a little
The
bit more
year,
than a
okay, that's the year. So
Yeah.
is that what you see per year?
If you look at historically, I think prior to my time and really before COVID, it sounded like the numbers were larger. I think it was truly the central hub before there were other agencies that assisted, and there were more peer support options for individuals. So landscape's changed a little bit, I think, from what I've heard historically versus now. So we did a lot of marketing efforts since last April when we presented. Revamped the brochure, got them out there. We've been doing presentations. IDOC has a quarterly WebEx where there was like 6 or 7 different correctional facilities with inmates that are about to get released. So we go to those and try to really promote it. We just didn't see a lot of the results of that, unfortunately.
And second question, what's the overlap between Rosecrans and First Followers? Or is there a way, how does that mix go?
So I think they're a good pairing in that, they offer very specific peer support services, meaning many of those individuals have gone through incarceration themselves, gotten out, and are fairly successful. And so that model of like, come along with me on this journey, or, let me help you along this journey, I've gone through it, is wonderful. It's not something that, some of our clinicians had the experience for, but then they lack some of the more clinical evidence-based practices when it comes to treating mental health issues and substance use.
Go ahead, Sherlock.
So, Dave, I think not everybody in this room is privy to the conversations that we've had recently about staff turnover, and maybe that being some of the reason for the lower numbers, but the repeated staff turnover being the reason.
Yes.
So we've talked about like a great reimagining of how we could do this, recognizing that people in reentry are voting with their feet with where to go, but still there's a place for Rosecrans, but maybe the county's dollars being divvied up to support where people go. And so just to give everyone in this room, so we can move along, an idea, we might be coming back with a different contract with different people at some point. We still care about your phrase I really liked when we talked, how do we walk away from the money and not walk away from the cause? Yeah. And so that's where Rosecrans is coming from. We've had this discussion where ethically you feel like we're not people aren't coming. So
and the case manager position, I think, turned over 3 times since the last, well, actually it would have been
about 15 months ago, I think, that we've had 3. But yeah, so there might be a reimagining of how to spend these how to spend the tax dollars. I cannot talk today, the PSST. How to spend the tax dollars in a way that we can give back to the community and support people with mental health and substance needs, but support the people who absolutely don't want to go there and have other options. And I will say one of the biggest add-ons we've had in the Reentry Council is Bethany Little from Win Recovery. So she is a rock star, and I hope to introduce her to y'all later.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Dave, I have a question. So how does your partnership with First Followers work if they're not a member of, like if they haven't worked with Rosecrans specifically, but there's someone at First Followers who they said, hey, we think we can't help them, or we would like to partner with you. How does that work?
So we do usually have participation from at least one of the First Followers individuals on the council. Not every month, but Karen Cohen-Heath, who's the team lead, who would have been here today. She's the team lead of reentry as well as criminal justice in our mental health, juvenile justice. So she has a pretty close contact with them. And so they know to contact her when they've got someone that's really in need, and then vice versa. So Karen will reach out to them if someone hasn't been connected with First Followers. So it's usually case by case, but they're on our list of like, if you're not connected with them, we want to get you in there, and same thing with First Followers. And so sometimes maybe the identification of that individual needing it maybe sometimes get missed if they're observably doing well, or maybe just kind of white knuckling it or making it putting on a good face that they're not needing those services. But
So if we take away our dollars, and someone from the reentry program with First Followers reaches out to you, would you guys still be able to provide services?
most definitely, yes. Two venues. One is if they meet medical necessity for behavioral health services. If they don't have insurance, we're gonna get them. They likely are eligible, so we'll help them with that application process. And then if they're maybe don't meet the criteria for mental health and or substance use services, we can still service them under the criminal justice side of things as well, with very similar case management services offered and linkages to the other resources and Rosecrans services.
One question, sorry. Are you going to get rid of the reentry program if you're no longer receiving?
No,
Okay.
it would sort of fold into criminal justice. We'd still keep two tracks just because, someone being released from county jail has different issues than someone being released from IDOC for, 10 years or so. So we would still, especially for like data tracking, we would keep the two tracks separate. And yeah.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I think Committee Chair Rogers, to kind of dovetail, you asked some really good questions. I want to follow up on one of yours. Does any of our funding, is it all given to case management and connecting to services, or does any of our funding actually pay for clinicians or for, do you know what I mean? Or for like the providing of the services? Like you had mentioned the telehealth, like are we paying the bill of the telehealth, or are we all case management and connectivity?
It would be the staff member themselves, and then I'm not a good finance guy, but like direct cost over like the part of Karen, the supervisor, so that it wouldn't be less like a fee for service from that pool.
Anything else from anyone? Okay. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Happy birthday on Saturday.
Okay, moving right along. C, we have the approval and release of the RFP 2025 -005 evaluation of employment. Go ahead, JJ. Sorry. We have first and Ellie, second. Okay, open for discussion. Any questions? Go ahead, Jeff.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Rogers. So when I looked at the RFP and the items delineated in the RFP, I'm not finding anything inconsistent with what's already in our personnel policy. So is there some gap in equal employment opportunity in the county? And is there a gap in the affirmative action program? I've not heard anything. What have you found so far?
I'm not sure I 100% understand your question.
I'm sure you don't.
The point to the RFP was to have an expert evaluate how we're doing on those programs.
Has there been complaints on those programs? Or how many complaints?
Well, the point to the DEI task force was to create more diversity, equity, and inclusion in the county. But before we can create more, we need to know where we're at. So we're trying to figure out where are we at right now, and then how do we go from there?
We already have a mandated requirement for equal employment opportunity, a mandated requirement for affirmative action. Are you saying we don't have that in fact, or what?
Yeah, we have the mandates, but what do they actually look like in practice? Are there barriers that we don't know about? Are we hiring people, but certain demographics stay longer? Do people, get promoted based on different factors? There's all kinds of implicit and explicit factors that we need some data on to figure out if we're going to be tackling DEI, what does that need to look like?
So why wouldn't just the department heads follow the personnel policy and issue the reports accordingly?
If we could do everything by the department heads just following the policy, there would be nothing for us to ever need to discuss.
Well, that's kind of why we have some policies, right? We have a lot of policies. We don't have a review of all our policies to say that they're adequate or inadequate.
I think Member Furtado wants to say something.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
I mean, if it pleases the court, I can respond to this. This is my field. So I'm in labor and employment relations. So there's a vast difference between a policy and a plan to implement that policy. A policy is something that's written on a piece of paper, and a plan to implement that policy assesses where you are in compliance with that policy, and then gives actionable items to the implementation of that plan. And I think it would be a disservice to say to our elected officials, oh, we put together this policy, and then we don't give them any tools in order to implement it appropriately. This is a field of study that has best practices. And none of our elected officials are, nor should they be, experts in that field of study. There's standards for this that make you a good employer or a not good employer. And 2 studies ago by Gallagher, they suggested, and I'm going to quote it here, that we should begin our DEI journey. The first thing we did to begin that DEI journey is set up a task force. We felt that the county internally didn't even have the internal expertise to put this RFP together, let alone implement a plan. And so we built a team of people, right, that included folks from our county, but also people that were from other agencies that were further along in that journey. For example, the city of Champaign, who came in and said, here are some of the markers that you need to have in order to have a robust DEIA plan in place that you should ask for in an RFP, right, in order to put that plan in place. So like, far from us saying that we have the internal expertise to put the policy that we have just written on paper into action, we didn't even feel like we had the internal expertise to even put the RFP together to get to that plan. So, the task force, has done a commendable amount of work just getting us to this point. This right here represents half a year of work, right? Putting this RFP together. And then over the summer, if we get responses, then we would be like, we're not even like on the journey. We're on like this, I don't know. We now can see the path to put us on the journey. And, and I also just want to thank the task force that I think put a tremendous amount of work into getting us to this point. So both the members of our county staff and the county board, but also especially the folks that volunteered from other agencies to get us to this point. I read through this RFP and I was impressed by its comprehensiveness. So thank you all for that work.
Ellie?
Just a quick point to Jeff, to one of your questions. I believe we have heard from the public and from elected officials on this that there is a need for the county to do more in this area. So just wanted to mention that.
And just also to touch base on what you said. So I was the chair of the committee. And one of the things we discussed is that the county employees do not represent the actual like community. So when we look at who we're hiring, it's not reflective of the diversity that we see in our community. When you look at, I'm not sure what the report is called, but when we look at the applicants that come in, I don't know, once a month or however, then we get that report. It's mostly Caucasian people. There are certain departments that only Caucasian males apply for. So there are issues that we don't know what they are. Some of the other issues that were brought to our attention was the possibility of there being concerns about how accessible applying to the county is to certain demographics. So go ahead, Stephanie.
I'd also just like to remind us, I don't think we look at this that often, but the board actually has a strategic plan. And the very first point to our strategic plan, there's a section called values, and our very first one is diversity. And to Jamala's point, it has 3 things under it: appreciation of the diverse culture within our community, strive for a workforce reflective of the community, and equal and inclusive access to services and programs. And we know that for there to be truly equal and access to programs, you need a workforce that is reflective of the community that would avail themselves of those programs. So right now, I think both point 2 and point 3, we aren't living up to the strategic vision that we as a board have said. That, I mean, I think we could go through the rest of them and probably find some other ways we're not living up to the strategic vision, but this at least gets us through like the first section.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Thanks. I realize this isn't the financial portion, so don't necessarily need a good answer, but I guess I kind of question, do we have any idea what the RFP in and of itself would cost? Just looking ahead in the agenda with our rosy, financial forecast that's further on in the agenda. And then, okay, if, where's that money going to come from? How much? And then if we get this RFP done, do we have, if it's going to cost anything to do anything to implement after the RFP, do we have the money to do that? Or do we just put another study RFP, you could say, on the shelf and it just sits there? I mean, that's just some thoughts in terms of from the financial. And again, knowing this isn't the financial portion of the meeting.
I would say we have no idea how much this is going to cost, which is partly why we want to do the RFP, is so that we can figure out what kind of cost are we looking at if we want to continue working on this. This current request is mostly data analysis, so I would hope that it's not an astronomical cost, because we send them a bunch of numbers, they crunch them, send us back something that we can understand. But it could be more than I'm thinking. I'm not sure. So this is definitely just the request to just put the RFP out to the public so that we can figure out what is the price range that we're looking at right now. And then we'll come back for another conversation.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Yeah, just a quick, I would point out that it says in here too, that this solicitation does not commit us to actually award a contract or pay any money. So I'm comfortable getting the information so that we can make a more informed decision.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Sorry. There's also, when you think about like the implementation side of things, there's like the world where we could have implemented this if we had passed PSST, but we didn't. Right. So I also think like if we do award this RFP, that we could have like a real conversation with the folks. And there's stuff that we could be doing that doesn't cost money, or that costs very little bit of money, just shifting the way how we do things. And then there's stuff that they might recommend that will be, just to be perfectly blunt, outside of our ability to do. So I think we should have that real conversation with whoever's awarded this, and that is specifically in the recommendation section, that we should ask them for things that cover a range of options, because I totally do agree with Aaron. We don't want this to just be another study that we stick on a shelf. Even if we can't implement the entire landscape of what they'd like us to do, they should have if they're a good firm, they're going to have recommendations that just are a shift in what we're doing, not cost.
Go ahead. Okay. Jeff, go ahead.
Thank you. I very much appreciate all the labor and effort that went into this. All effort is worthwhile, I believe, but I disagree with the premise. I think we have a Civil Rights Act, both the Federal Civil Rights Act. We have federal and state law for affirmative action and equal opportunity. So I'm going to vote no because I don't agree with the premise.
Anyone else? Okay. I guess I will close discussion.
Would we have to vote on something?
Yeah, so now, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, sorry, got distracted. I don't have any other business. I don't have a chair's report, and there will be no items placed on the consent agenda. Going back to you, Chair Locke, thank you.
Moving along, finance, Ms. Hanauer Friedman.
Okay. So starting with A, budget amendments transfers. Number 1 is information only. This is a monthly general corporate budget amendment report for April 2025. And this is something we asked Travis to provide to the board once a month. I think we've gotten a bunch of requests for this in the past, just so we can keep a pretty clear running tab of the damage that we're doing with all of our BUAs. And you can see that he's included the projected deficit for fiscal year 25 there, and this will change every month. Yeah, JJ.
I just want to speak to this so that if anybody's watching at home, they hear this. The current projected fiscal year 25 deficit for Champaign County is $2,145,113. We have made $612,763 worth of additional appropriations, while only taking in an additional $80,697 in revenue for the general fund. As we go on tonight, there's another ask for in upwards of $400,000 from the general fund. We are also in the middle of contract negotiations that will affect the general fund. We are in trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, JJ. Moving on to number 2, budget amendment BUA 2025-3148, Fund 2613, Courts Automation Fund, and 2630, Circuit Clerk Operation and Admin Department 030, Circuit Clerk, increased appropriations $82,216, increased revenue $82,216, reason appropriation of grant funds from the Illinois Court Technology Modernization Program. Can I get a motion? Matt and Jenny Lakshin. Any discussion? I know we do have our circuit clerk here tonight if anyone has questions. Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Number 3, budget amendment BUA 2025-3342, Fund 2075, Regional Planning Commission, Department 100, Regional Planning Commission, increased appropriations $16,880, increased revenue $16,880, reason appropriation of additional emergency and transitional housing support grant funds. Can I get a motion? Jenny, sorry, I can't see. Aaron, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Number 4, budget amendment BUA 2025-3407, Fund 2083, County Highway, Department 060 Highway, increased appropriations $500,000, increased revenue 0. Reason initial investment for the Highway Department solar panels. Can I get a motion? Beth, second. Daniel, any discussion? I would just want to point out we did have a question about the dollar amount here because in the memo, the actual dollar amount is $483,493, not 500 even. So I think Travis, you're gonna amend that.
Yeah, yes, I'll work with Highway to see if there was a reason, and if not, we'll get that amended. So that probably won't go on consent agenda, and we'll vote for that next week.
And I also just wanted to clarify that this will not hit the general fund. This is coming out of Highways fund balance, and because of solar credits, they will eventually be refunded by the state. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Number 5, Budget Amendment BUA 2025-433, Fund 2680, Opioid Settlement Settlement Fund, Department 075, General County. Increased appropriations, 15,000. Increased revenue, 0. Reason, appropriation of funds to support programs and services for opioid impacted individuals and communities as prioritized by the Opioid Settlement Task Force. Can I get a motion? Chair Locke, second by Eric. Any discussion? JJ?
I see the memo says this is for, or this is going to the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District. I know when we were setting up the agenda, we had some questions. I'm just checking. So this is for one program that's like specified. This is one thing for $15,000, right?
Yes, this is one thing for $15,000. Yeah, there was some question of what had been actually appropriated and what had just been approved via contract. This was the only one. So in this case, this is one contract to fund harm reduction with CUPHD.
Oh, Jeff.
Thank you. Quick question for understanding. What does harm reduction look like?
You might recognize it as a needle exchange. CUPHD has a program where opioid users can trade in their needles for clean needles, and then that way lots of harm is reduced. Hepatitis C goes down, infections go down, everything that goes along with that goes down. They also are encouraged to seek treatment, all the everything, but sometimes you just have to prevent harm, and the way you can prevent harm, and this had been voted on unanimously by the Opioid Task Force as a way of directly addressing the opioid epidemic within our community.
Aaron.
Just another quick note. If I'm remembering right, I remember asking this question, but so we're talking 15,000 out of the Opioid Settlement Task Force, and I asked, like the person that was here, what it might cost for someone who got infected by using a dirty needle for a year, and it was $60-some thousand, if I remember right, for medicine. So what I kind of look at it, okay, granted that 60,000 isn't maybe directly coming from taxpayers, but yet it's the community as a whole that it's costing. And even if I don't have that 60,000, it was up there. I mean, so way less than treatment for one person per year. Again, it's treatment as a whole and community as a whole. So yeah, I mean, that's one big reason I can easily vote for it.
Just to piggyback on Mr. Esri, when they land in our jail, we do pay for it. And Sheriff Harmon has come in here quite often and told us the medical bill is astronomical, because when someone comes in with hepatitis C, we can't say, sorry, we can't treat you. We have a constitutional obligation to treat them. And it's $60,000 to $80,000 of medication over the course of 14 weeks to do that. So this is a good use of our funds.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. B, Auditor number 1, resolution authorizing interfund loans from reserves to other funds. Can I get a motion? Eric,
second JJ. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Now we have County Executive C, number 1, year-end transfer to balance overdrawn lines for fiscal year 2024. This is information only, and I'd ask Travis to join us. And I will turn it over to our budget director to give us a fabulous or not so fabulous financial forecast. But if anyone has any questions about number 1 while he's getting set up, go ahead. Otherwise, over to you, Travis.
Thanks. I'll try to keep this somewhat short. So with all the uncertainty with the economy and the federal policies going on right now, this year's forecast has been really difficult. Something seems to change every single day. My colleague Brandy, who many of you know, suggested that I come up here tonight and shake a magic 8-ball and just call it a day. However, I know Chris has been looking forward to this presentation for a year now, so I won't do that. The forecast kicks off today. It's about a 7-month process, and I'm hoping we'll have the FY26 budget process completed around Thanksgiving. Here's kind of the schedule. It's in the packet as well, and I'll show this again later in the presentation. There are 2 kinds of forecasters, those who don't know and those who don't know that they don't know. I find this quote to do a good job summarizing the forecast process, especially this year with so many unknowns and significant changes to the economy on a daily basis, it seems. The forecast provides a framework for planning. It's not set in stone, and it should be reviewed throughout the year because stuff can change in a blink of an eye. It's an important tool for the board as you guys start making decisions on next year's budget. I'll start by giving a quick overview of the general fund as of the end of 2024. Keep in mind these are unaudited numbers, so they could change a little bit. The unreserved balance, fund balance, when you exclude the annual restricted amounts for items such as the bond, is just over $13 million. This equates to about 26% of expenditures. County policy states that we must maintain at least 16.7%, but based on a recommendation from our financial advisors, the goal is about 25%. Maintaining a healthy fund balance is very important, especially with all the uncertainty going on right now. Many of these challenges are written in greater detail in the report in the packet, but I'll go over a few of them here. The county has always struggled to build a reserve in the CARF fund. The county has very limited control over our revenues. Health insurance costs are expected to continue to grow. This year, the county started an HRA, which kept us from getting a significant increase in health insurance costs for this year by taking on additional risks that the insurance company does not have to take on. And so the county did pass those savings on to the employees, but that was a one-time thing we could do and probably expect it to start going back up again starting next year. And then not only are there economic uncertainties, there are legislative decisions that I've been watching closely. There's been talk in the state about potentially freezing property taxes. The federal government is discussing removing tax exempt status from bonds. That would dramatically increase the cost of all governments to borrow for capital projects. I think the estimate off the top of my head is it would be about a 2.1% increase to the cost of borrowing. And just to put that in perspective, if the jail bond had a 2.1% increase, that would cost the county an additional roughly $325,000 per year in interest. And then the other big thing that might happen this year or should happen this year is the county resolving the hospital cases. PTEL has handcuffs all non-home rule entities. As EAV grows, the county's levy is distributed over more properties, essentially lowering the county's property tax rate. 9 of the last 10 years, the county's rate has dropped. If the county could have just kept the rate flat over these 10 years, like many of the home rule entities do, the last year's levy would have been $5.1 million more roughly, and $17 million more over the previous 10 years combined. PPRT, personal property replacement taxes, has been a roller coaster since 2020. Due to record corporate profits during COVID and closures of loopholes, PPRT shattered previous all-time highs over the previous couple of years. I think this was implemented in the early 70s, so it's been a long time to shatter these highs. However, the state discovered a formula error in their calculation, and this has started to reduce distributions. In addition, they are clawing back the funds from the error over the years that they had these errors. So revenue has dropped by about $2 million since a couple years ago, and is expected to drop for another year and then kind of be back to pre-COVID normals, probably a little bit higher than that. One of the biggest uncertainties is the economy. I could probably spend hours talking about that tonight, but I won't. But there has been a recent uptick in talks about a potential recession. This could cause a major hit to county revenues. The feds are expected to start lowering interest rates again to try to curb the recession. Cost of goods are still high, and tariffs are only likely to make that even higher. And actually, the county has received a letter from one of our major vendors stating that their goods are going up by a flat rate due to tariffs. The U of I Flash Index analyzes the economy. The economy is expanding when it's above 100, which is the orange line in this graph. The post-pandemic boom has cooled, and the past couple of years has only experienced slow growth. The 10-2 yield curve is the difference between the 10-year and 2-year Treasury rates. A negative 10-2 yield curve has historically been seen as a precursor to a recessionary period. A negative yield curve has predicted nearly every recession since 1955. And the recession usually takes place about 6 to 24 months after it's been inverted. For about 2 years, the yield curve was inverted. It recently has gone positive, but it is kind of trending back down again. So we'll see where it goes. The 10-year 3-month yield curve, though, is still negative. And that's the yield curve that the Federal Reserve of New York uses for their model to predict the likelihood of a recession in the next 12 months. This chart shows their predictions, the blue lines, and the green dots are when recessions have actually occurred as defined by NEBR, the National Bureau of Economic Research. As you can see, their model has been pretty accurate over the years. I think there was only one time that they predicted a likelihood of recession being over 30%, and it didn't happen, and that was all the way back in the 60s. Currently, right now, it's showing a very high probability of a recession in the next 12 months. Now moving on to county stuff. This graph, it shows the general fund revenue since 2019. Federal, state, local shared revenue represents the largest portion, followed by property taxes. These two categories are probably the two categories that would be affected the most, however, if there was a recession. One other thing I'd like to point out, as you all know, fines, fees, and charges have been dropping over the past 10 years, and we can expect that to continue to kind of stay lower than it historically had always been. By far, the largest general fund expense is personnel, which represents about 64% of the expenses in the general fund, and that percentage has increased each year. This is a reason why a healthy fund balance is so important. If the county finds themselves in a situation where the economy slows and we have to reduce costs, personnel would be really the only cuts that could make a significant difference to the budget. This is probably the most important graph of the entire forecast. It's a summary of probably 15 pages of the report in the packet, all on one graph. Just like previous years, the county is forecasted to run at a structural deficit, which means expenditures are growing faster than revenues. This deficit starts to eat at fund balance as the years goes on. You'll notice a spike in FY25. That's because there are a lot of one-time expenses causing that spike. A couple examples of those expenses are the out-of-county housing of inmates, which will hopefully be done with this year. The possibility of the hospital case property tax payouts. The county has known about that for a while, so that was in the fund balance. I mean, part of it was, planned in the fund balance. But as you can see, for FY26 and beyond, expenditures are growing at about 3%, while revenues are growing at about 2%, and the fund balance drops significantly and quickly after those years. And just to reiterate, the county's policy is to maintain an unrestricted general fund budgetary fund balance percentage of 16.7% at a minimum. But based on a GFOA worksheet and recommendations from the county's financial advisors, a goal of 25% is prudent. Moving on to public safety sales tax. In order to show them separately, the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund does not include any transfers to support the general fund in this chart from 26 and beyond. It also does not include any reserve funding for CARF. The spike in 25 includes $2 million to start the court management system replacement project and $1 million in additional transfers to CARF as a way to ease the projected deficit that the general fund had. It is likely going forward that the gap from 26 on, where revenue is slightly higher than expenditures, that the county may have to do additional transfers into the general fund to pay for eligible costs that the public safety sales tax has historically not covered. But in order to help with the deficit of the general fund, it may be needed in the future. CARF, or Capital Asset Replacement Fund, is the fund that is used to replace most of the county's large purchases. These include buildings, vehicles, software, hardware, equipment, etc. It's mainly funded from transfers from the general fund and public safety sales tax funds. Due to revenue restraints, it's historically been funded only on a year-to-year basis and has not built up a reserve for unexpected replacements that are needed. Kathy Larson comes and explains ARPA quarterly to the board, and she does an awesome job of that. So she'll probably be back soon, so I'll let her get into all the weeds of that. But all the funds had to be obligated by the end of 24, which the county did, and they all must be spent by the end of 26 or they have to be returned. One thing to note is ARPA had been providing relief to the CARF fund, which therefore provided relief to the general fund by paying for some software costs. However, in FY25, about $200,000 of software costs went back to CARF. This shows the surplus and deficit estimate of the general fund and public safety sales tax side by side. In the current fiscal year, there are significant one-time expenses that I talked about in both of these funds, so it looks really bad. Going forward, as I mentioned, public safety sales tax projected surpluses may need to cover costs in the general fund that are eligible for public safety sales tax but have not historically been covered by the fund. Keep in mind, the forecast does not include all the county's needs or desires. Some of them are listed on this slide and in the packet, but this is not all of them that the county has. Next are a couple scenarios of hypothetical situations. The first grouping is just the forecast. It's basically what you just saw on the last slide. Next, later, and right after I'm done talking, there will be a discussion about a potential RFP that JJ mentioned earlier today that is large. So I was asked to show what the forecast would look like if that one-time cost was added into FY25. Luckily, it's a one-time cost, not recurring, so it just comes out of the general fund, but does not affect the structural deficit anymore going forward. The next grouping is if there is a potential recession, and this shows a hypothetical of what it would look like if sales tax was flat in FY26. I did not have enough courage to run it with if it was negative or declined in 26. I just went with flat. So as you can see, it would be a recurring thing because it would take a while for that to catch back up to where it was. And we would actually be forecasted to have a negative fund balance in FY30. And then the last section is if both of those scenarios happen, what it would look like. And the county would be forecasted to be under fund balance policy by FY27 and would be under goal in FY25. So the county has built a healthy fund balance, especially compared to years ago, which will help with any uncertainties. Unfortunately, with a structural deficit, no matter what happens with the economy, we'll start eating at that fund balance no matter what. So the hard work of preparing for the FY26 budget will start to ramp up really soon. And again, here is a reminder of the FY26 timeline. So that's all I have, if there's any questions.
JJ.
This is actually more of a comment just for board members to make sure that they understand one of the charts. Looking at the public safety sales tax chart with the two lines and Travis mentioned several times that if we needed to, we could transfer money from public safety sales tax to general fund for allowable expenses. I just want to make sure you realize the gap between those two lines is generally less than $1 million. It's not going to help us that much.
Any other questions or comments for Travis? Oh, Stephanie.
Just to echo what JJ said, by 2027, it doesn't keep up. Like that gap doesn't keep up with the deficit that is projected in fund balance. And in 2026, it only keeps up with like $25 left. So yeah, like it's not going to save us. It doesn't even keep up. And then the other thing I think that's super important to remember is the only reason, the driving reason that this isn't worse is because of the astronomical number of vacancies that we've had and underspending in our personnel. So we still have to budget as if we were fully staffed because that's how budgets work, right? You can't just have people on there. But we also, these elected officials, they need the number of people that they need in order to run the county properly. So the only way that we have gotten to even this dire circumstance is by stressing out everybody who works at the county because their offices are not properly staffed. And then, just to be blunt, the downhill impact of that is not serving our constituents in the way that they deserve to be. Like this picture, as dire as it is, I think in some ways is more rosy than it actually is, because it's only this dire by the fact that we are consistently understaffed in a lot of our areas and cannot recruit at the level of what we offer for these jobs in the market that we find ourselves in. So that's the other thing, that's the cloud. And I also just wanted to also say, this is a tremendous amount of work, and thank you for it. And also thank you for explaining it in a way that I was like following along. So thank you very much.
And Jeff?
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie and JJ, and thanks for all your hard work. You're probably just pulling your hair out over these forecasts. So I just want to internalize the two recent comments. So on page 20 or page 10 or slide 20, I guess, this is the forecast of the general fund, not based on your other scenarios, but just if the other scenarios don't occur, right?
That is correct. And you're talking about this slide that I have up here, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. That does not include the scenarios.
Okay, thank you. And then number 2, just so I remember this, the public safety sales tax fund, let's see, in the out years, that's 26 and beyond. That's the gap between the curve on page 17. So what that is?
That is correct.
Okay. And then the difference or the delta or the end result then is if 100% of the underutilized public safety sales tax is applied to the general fund.
In essence, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
And then one more thing. I agree with Stephanie. So it seems year after year, there's about 40 or so people that aren't staffed, right? And right now, how does that work at the end of the year? The budget for that staff, does it roll into the general fund? Where does it go?
Yes, for general fund employees, obviously. It rolls back into the fund balance. But Michelle, if you wanted to explain anything in deeper detail about that, but yeah, it rolls back into the fund balance.
And one more, and the future assumption is that none of that rolls back into the fund balance going forward. Do you understand the question? So if it's about, I don't know, it's $1 or $2 million every year that it's unspent based on understaffing, and that's only applied in 24, but going forward for 25 and beyond, it's assumed that we're 100% staffed. Is that correct?
I do have a estimate based on historical understaffed spending built into the forecast. So this includes a dollar amount for potential underspending in personnel. The last couple of years have been historically high, though. So it was the last few years, the actuals came in higher than my estimate, or higher than the estimates that were budgeted. But there is some of that built into the forecast and budgets.
Which means then if we're 100% staffed going forward, then this picture would look more dire.
Correct.
Okay. I'm asking all those questions, one, because I like clarification, and two, I'm understanding that most people that are watching this don't understand this either. So anyway, thank you, Travis.
I think Michelle has some clarifications too.
I was just going to add that our high vacancy rate for the last couple of years has actually been the thing that has saved us from being in a deficit or a larger deficit for the last, I think, at least 3 to 4 years. So, yes, it's a very frustrating double-edged sword. It makes it very difficult for the county to run, but we would be in a significantly worse financial position if we had that vacancy money not coming back to us at the higher rate than we have had. It's just, I'm not saying that as a good thing. I'm saying that as again, that's how bad our financial situation is.
Mala.
Okay. This isn't really a question. It's more of a, I guess it's a question. I don't actually know if it's an appropriate question though. So what's the solution if there is one? And I don't know if that's appropriate to talk about right now. Ellie's just smiling at me. Go ahead, sir.
I think it's something that we need to collectively talk about over the next 2 years. Right now, we're locked in. I mean, as Travis said, if for some reason this accelerates, if we get into like the worst case scenario, based on our budgeting, the solution is a staff reduction. The percentage of our budget that is to staff and almost all of our other costs are fixed costs, right? The software, contracts are what they are. I mean, we could maybe pull some capital projects, although we have seen what the result of that is because we've all been digging ourselves out of that because every single building that we have is crumbled and every single software that we had is crumbled, right? So I don't want to say we've gotten ourselves even, but we've maybe kind of gotten our heads slightly above water. But I am understanding of why previous boards made the decisions that they did because there is no good decision. So there's nothing else that we can put on the ballot until the 2026 election. So for this fiscal year and next fiscal year, this is the reality that we're living in. What we are going to try next, I don't know. I've been part of this board that's tried 2 separate things. Well, one thing. I came in right after we tried a different thing, and they both failed miserably. So there's no really good way to say this. At some point, you get the government services that you agree to pay for, right? And this is the reality. I think the COVID ARPA relief money sort of put a Band-Aid on that for a while. But this landscape, but I think we need to collectively spend a lot of time over the next 2 years coming up with a plan. That's not a real good answer. If I had an answer, I'd offer it. But I think that is the question of this body for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we tried on the most recent election, and the public did not provide us with the funds that we needed. So we will need to do a better job, I think, of communicating the realities of our budget and the deficit that we're in and headed towards with our constituents, and move forward from there. Eric.
Just a thought, we have time to make a concerted effort to become home rule and eliminate PTEL. And this was something that was talked about a while ago, and we kind of dropped the ball on that. But PTEL is what kills us. And PTEL is some old dream of Grover Norquist to, make us all live happily ever after without putting anything back into where we live. I'd love to see an estimate, but I don't want you to take the time to do it, of what it would look like if we didn't have PTEL. You gave a brief description of that. We'd be, 17 million ahead, I think, right now. And you could do quick math right on that sheet there or any other sheet, and it would help us out a lot. Would that pass? I don't know. It'd be like the public safety sales tax. People want their stuff to work. They want their street plowed, but they don't want to buy it. So Stephanie's right. We get the government we are willing to pay for, or at least the majority is willing to pay for.
Any other questions for Travis? Oh, Travis.
Real quick, want to clarify one thing. That $17 million estimate, though, was not just general fund. That was countywide, so other funds, so it wouldn't have put 17 million back into the general fund.
No, but it's not a drop in the bucket.
Correct.
JJ.
Could you put the slide up that showed with the flat revenue and the additional things, please? I just wanted to take a quick picture of it since we don't have it in our packet.
Yes, we do.
We do? Oh, it's in the color one. Never mind.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you again, Travis. This was immensely helpful, if not immensely depressing. Okay. Moving on. I'm sorry that that's the act that we have to follow, but we have item D, County Clerk. Number 1, approving award of contract for voter registration and poll book software and vendor support pursuant to RFP 2024-005. Can I get a motion? Locke and Lockshin second. And any discussion, and we do have our clerk here. Okay, let's dive right in. Ed.
If you knew this was coming out, why was this not part of your budget?
We did discuss this throughout our budget process, but to make a decision at that time, I wasn't prepared to make that decision at that moment. I didn't know exactly what would happen. There was an RFP that we had to put out, so I didn't know exactly what the cost would be.
And to follow up with that, do we have any of the proposals back? Do we have anything in writing from anybody?
Yes, we've had those proposals for quite some time, and we've already processed them and made it a recommendation to the Finance Committee, and I'm here to talk about that with the board tonight.
So just, Ed, this is the proposal that they've received from 10X is for $414,580. It's in the packet. Does that clarify?
I know the amount is there, but I mean, what are we getting for this? I don't think that I personally seen any kind of paperwork or proposals or bids that were put out for that.
Do you want to speak to what the proposal entails?
I don't have the entire RFP here in front of me.
No, but just in general, what we're talking about.
So what we're discussing is a move from our current vendor to a new vendor. The 10X solution is what we are discussing here tonight. And the RFP was put out. I don't have the exact date in front of me. I don't know if Angie, if anyone remembers exactly what date we put that out, but we received 2 bids back. One from 10X Solutions, one from GBS. So we brought both of those potential vendors in. We had a demo basically from both of them. And one of the proposals that came back also included 2 other vendors that we were not aware of. And the cost became way more exorbitant than what we see here tonight with the 10X solution. So I didn't think that was tenable at all. So we began the working with 10X to try to see if we could make this a viable solution. The current vendor did not respond to the RFP. So we were left with these 2 options. And we must have a voter registration program in order to run an election. So we began working with 10X, and we've done quite a bit of work to try to get the number down to where it is now. I know many of us who may have been around the county for a long time, there was a proprietary system that we had initially when we first came into office, and no one was able then or willing to maintain that system, so we had no other choice but to go out to the market. We chose the current vendor that we have now. We thought that would be something that we would have long term, but that has turned out to be not the case. Many of you are aware of the issues that we've seen for several elections, and it becomes, becomes an issue for us to try to maintain and run the elections with our current vendor. So in talking with 10X, we've worked to get this number down to where it is right now. The initial cost would have been somewhere around 600, almost $700,000, because that is what's happening in the elections market right now. Many of our colleagues across the state are paying $900,000, $1 million or more for these upfront costs. That is the cost of elections in this current climate.
Jenny.
Just to underline something that Clerk Ammon said there that is really important to me, the current vendor did not bid. They are, by that, demonstrating to the county that they no longer are really interested in providing us the services that we need. This is the low bid, and I, again, commend Clerk Ammons for all the work he's done to get it even lower, along with the work that he's done throughout the years in the office to win grants and find ways to pay for things to modernize that office and to do it at no cost to the county and to the taxpayers. I hate spending money. I like, especially, following, that was a tough act to follow, but we have to have fair, accurate elections. And I don't see a way around the one-time cost, knowing that subsequent annual costs will be paid for out of grant funding is a balm to me. And again, knowing that you're doing everything you can to reduce costs is very helpful. Thank you.
I just wanted to add a little bit of financial information that the clerk shared with us in caucus. So the total listed in the memo is the $414,580, but if I understand this correctly, your office is going to be implementing some other cost-saving measures by selling this. If you implement this service, you'll be able to sell some of the laptops in the office, which would generate, I think you said, another at least 40,000, and then there'd be another 36,000 generated. Can you just share that a little bit more?
The laptops that we currently have that serve as poll books, we believe that we will be able to sell them if there's an interested party, whether it's a school district or another county who could use those, somewhere between $40,000 to $80,000, depending on the amount of laptops that we're able to sell to another entity. The 3,600, it wasn't 36,000. The 3,600 was more dealing with there were charging stations and charging cords and all the other things that a vendor tries to sell you when they bring you an entire package, that we were able to, through my IT specialist, Tunde Odolate, was able to find some of those things for much cheaper online. And the process that we went through to lower the cost was also a recommendation that he had, so that we would maintain our current printers that we're using instead of paying for new printers. Member Lakshan, I do appreciate you raising that. Over the years of being in this office, sitting to my left is my Chief Deputy Angie Patton, and we have done a tremendous amount of work with grants. Even when we first came in and we needed to buy a bunch of new equipment, the initial cost was going to be somewhere upwards of $500,000. I think we only ultimately received a little over $200,000 from the board because we were able to get grant money for the rest of that. So we have done at every turn everything that we possibly can to lower the costs and to limit the impact on the general fund throughout the years. And it's not something that it's difficult for my staff and I to go through this change as well after having a vendor for 4 or 5 years. It's going to require changes with election judge training and all of that. So it's not something that we were, jumping up and down and really excited to have to do. But given the situation that we find ourselves in and some of the issues that we faced, I just think that it would be negligent and irresponsible for me to recommend to the body that we stick with the current vendor. And as you also pointed out, they didn't even respond to the RFP.
I have an important note. If you turn to page 6 of the 10X contract in your packet, where it says total implementation, 43,000, that is covered under IVRS. They cover the training, the implementation, the data migration. And then if you go down, it says totally yearly software and licensing fees, the 85,000, that is also covered by the IVRS grant. So.
Eric, did you?
I think we have to also understand that we're not getting presented with a new bill that we didn't have before. We pay for what we have now. So it's not that the current vendor is giving it to us for nothing. So I know there's a fees with that. So we're looking at a continuous service that we have with a different vendor, and this is what the cost is. So I appreciate the little handout. You have some good summaries here. A nice number that stands out is $225,000 in savings through your negotiation with this prospective vendor. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And you can see that, I want to sort of talk about why 10X is that if you all see on the little chart that we used, they have over 300 jurisdictions across the country that they are already servicing, and this is their footprint in Illinois. And you see the city of Chicago's election commission uses 10X and their full suite, as well as Will County, which is one of the larger counties that we have in Illinois. They also use them, and I have spoken with both of them, and they are very pleased with the services, the product, the response time, the customer service. And I had the opportunity while out in Idaho, of all places, to visit Ida County, which also has the full suite. So I was able to witness the 10X product in full operation in real time, and I haven't heard any negative, major negative comments. The one. Oh, yeah, and we also are using the TED solution, which is the election desk for our election judges. Allows us to track the election judges, assign them, see what they're doing as far as how far along they are in their training, and it's been a wonderful tool for us to use. 10X is extremely responsive, very quick to fix any concerns that we have. So it is my hope and my belief that this would be a long-term relationship that we have with them, and with the upfront costs, I'm going to go to bat again and talk to them about the possibility of splitting this if we possibly can. I'm willing to do everything that I possibly can to try to help the general fund at this point, but I have no choice but to come to you at this time, because if we don't have a voter registration vendor and we don't have a voter registration program, we cannot have an election.
Jen?
You took the words out of my mouth. If we don't have a program, we can't have elections. And that's like the thing we're supposed to do, right? Like we take people's tax dollars, we have a jail, we run the court, and we run elections. We have to have this. It's crappy that it costs so much one time, and it's great that we have grants to cover it the rest of the time. And I am a full-throated yes for this tonight.
A little bit further into this, we've had some back and forth. The grant money and what's approved has changed. It kind of ebbs and flows sometimes, but we're going to look deeper into maybe that there's a $43,000 cost that Chief Patton just referred to, and we're going to double check tomorrow to see if that might be reduced. I don't know if it can be taken off the 414, but we'll look into that further as well.
Jeff?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ammons, for being here. And Angie, a couple questions. What were the significant or substantial registration issues you experienced this last election and the year before? Because you're using this to, what I heard you say was, I think what you said, maybe I'm wrong, that if we don't have this, we don't have voter registration, we don't have votes. So are you saying the existing system is disappearing?
Well, no, the voter registration program is also the software and the program that we use to monitor basically the elections on the election day or through early voting. It's interwoven into our entire process. So if you don't have that voter registration system, you can't track who's voted, you can't give a voting history. All those things are components of the voter software.
In other words, there has been no issues with voter registration so far that you can recall that would cause us not to keep using the existing system.
No, I think you're misunderstanding. So the voter registration system, for instance, is the system that we also use for when election judges are processing voters. So the issues that we are discussing are talking about things like the 2-hour downtime that took place in 24. That is the voter registration system. And if we don't have that up and running, we can't process voters. So that's what I'm speaking to.
how many people did not vote on the last election? No idea, right? I mean, I know you guys don't like what I'm asking, but that's okay. It's all right, but I think what I heard you say, what I hear people saying is, we don't have this system, we will not have elections. Is that true?
I think a better way to think about this is that it's all one system. So whether you're talking about updating a voter registration for an individual or processing a voter, it is the same system. A way to look at it is voter registration is the foundation of the entire program. It's where everything starts. It houses all of the data for registered voters, eligible voters in Champaign County. Does that make sense? So what we're talking about are the deficits in Platinum and their inability to maintain service. So we had 2 elections. 2022, we had down period, and then in 24, we had that again. And so what we're trying to do with this is we have a vendor that we're already using that is sort of a little bit more of a known quantity. We're trying to avoid making national news for Champaign County for presidential elections or any elections where the system is down and not operating. And we have serious concerns because several election authorities throughout the state have already left Platinum. They did not bid on this contract. And so this is where we're at. We're bringing you the best proposal in our estimation tonight.
Eric.
We've talked about it a lot. I was wondering if we could move on to the vote.
I haven't commented yet.
JJ.
What do we currently pay the vendor on a yearly basis, the current vendor?
Mike.
Is a maintenance cost. I think it's 71,000 or
So
something.
would
to
that be
effect.
comparable to the new cost that was the 100 and something each year?
So the new cost would be somewhere around 158,000 to 160,000. Again, this, if you're asking me to explain the differences,
I'm
or
just wanting to show everybody that we're, because the comment was made that we're already paying a vendor every year. So I just want to get out there what we're paying the current vendor. But I know that this program offers more than the current vendor.
absolutely a lot more, and we're not paying even the current vendor. We had an upfront cost when we first got to this current vendor, but the yearly costs and maintenance costs are being paid through the grant.
Okay. Was the current vendor approached for perhaps a 1-year extension if we needed to just do 1 year?
We already did an extension with them. We did an extension because our contract actually ran out before the 2024 presidential election. So we did a 6-month extension with them, which goes until June 1st. Okay. And it was done so that we could make sure that we had a voter registration system to run the election for the 2024 presidential general election, as well as the primary and consolidated that we just wrapped up today, and the official results are on the website for anybody who's interested in that.
Okay. One of the things that's on your information sheet here, it says it's going to reduce the amount of paper by having this poll book system. Can you tell me what that's doing?
JJ, you are firmly aware of all of the paper that is used throughout the clerk's office. So one of the ways that we reduced that was, of course, going to the vote center model. But the other one is that these signature pads, many of you who have gone to go vote in person, we have to produce 67 or times 3 binders full of paper, and we bring in interns or staff has to do time to do that. So that's the paper, the ink, the time that we have to do to create those signature pads, and then at the end we have to scan all those signatures into the system. So we're talking countless hours of man hours or people hours that have to be spent to do that. Of course, the paper, the notebooks, and all of that. This new system will use an iPad, a flip screen that the voters would sign. So we would eliminate that completely.
But very important for the public to know, still a paper ballot that they're marking on.
Always a paper ballot. As long as I am here, I will be fighting for a paper ballot.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure nobody, that's why I wanted to let you say that.
No, I do not. No.
Okay. So I guess one of the things that a couple of things are going through my mind. And so June 1st is when your contract ends.
Yes.
We're also in the middle of contract negotiations with several bargaining units. if we needed to push this and see what happens with our personnel costs. I'm sure you would lose sleep over. I'm being serious. I'm sure you would lose sleep over it if we had to do that. But if that were something that we felt we needed to do so we could see where financially we are going to sit, is that something that we could work with you on?
I'm not sure that it's, I've presented a lot of different scenarios in which I've tried to do as much as I can on my end. But I'm concerned that if we move beyond June 1st and we find ourselves in a period where we have no voter registration vendor, then even just registering voters becomes an issue for us because we don't have a program to actually register voters. So moving beyond June 1st is, I believe, even from a legal standpoint, I don't want to call the state's attorney up here to jump into this, but I believe we would be in a very dangerous waters if we tried to do that. And we also need transition time. The current vendor and all the vendors that I've even spoken with that we did not choose, they said we need between 60, sometimes even 90 days to make this full transfer of data and export the our data, our voter registration data into a new program, because it's not as we would like for it to be real simple, just press a button and everything changes over. It's just not that simple. So they're asking for between 30 to 60 days to get that done. So that's why we wanted to get this contract finished, to have about that length of time to make sure that any questions, any issues that we have in that transition period, we have both entities under contract.
And then, so on June 1st, the old system, does it literally shut off, or do you just lose support?
Well, we believe there will be a transition right there at that time, but that's why we want to have this time in between to make that transition so that the new system would go live on June 2nd.
I guess what I'm saying is, if we weren't able to pass something by June 1st, would it literally shut off, they cut off access to you, or is it just that you don't have support?
You know, I would like to believe that this is a professional environment and folks would go above and beyond to make things work. But we would have no legal recourse to force them to do anything outside of that contract. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but you know, that is my understanding.
So they basically own the data that's on their system.
Well, we own the data.
Okay.
But that was very clear. And in the subsequent extension contract that Mr. Beckett helped us pull together, it is very robust in making sure that we, if there were any intentional actions on our current vendor of not sharing that information, then there would be legal recourse. But once that's over, we don't have any leverage.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Daniel.
I call the question.
Okay. I just, point of clarification, we don't actually have a BUA for this. This is the vote for the approving the award of the contract. So we will see the actual budget amendment on an upcoming agenda, just so everybody has that information. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'm saying no because I want to see this at the full board.
Got it. Okay, got it. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, last item, E, Regional Planning Commission. Number 1, approving the application for and if awarded, acceptance of the additional emergency and transitional housing support grant. Can I get a motion? Beth, and second by Eric. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I have no other business. I have no chair's report. Designation of items to be placed on the consent agenda are A2, A3, A5, B1, and DE. I'm sorry,
E1?
and E. No, just E. And I hand it back to our chair.
Thank you. All right, moving along, policy, personnel, and appointments. Oh, wait, yes, Eric?
Yeah, I don't know if we need to suspend the rules to do this since we already voted on the agenda, but is it possible to move the closed session to now so that the people waiting for the closed session can do the closed session?
I believe the idea is we also would have to cut the feed during that time with all of us in this room.
So it's a technology
I
problem.
believe it's a technology problem.
Okay, I tried.
I appreciate you trying. I mean, does anybody else want to move it or do we want to keep it? Okay. All right. Moving along, policy, personnel, and appointments, Dr. Storr.
Thank you, Chair Locke. Monthly HR report is found in your packet there, and I'll just mention, as has already been brought up, that we have a number of vacancies in the, including 7 correctional officers, 4 master control, 3 state's attorneys. And a number of court service officers. And some of these court service officers serve at the juvenile detention center. And discussion reminds me, why do we need all of these positions? One of the problems that they're having is retaining staff because we don't have enough personnel to allow folks to take their vacation. And this is not just a morale problem, it's a retention problem. Okay, end of sermon. The Job Content Evaluation Committee, Michelle, already there, queued up.
Yeah, actually, could we switch the order? Can we do C first? Is there any objection to that?
If no, without objection, let's go ahead and do the Deputy Administrator position, Children's Advocacy Center. Can I get a motion, Mr. Thorsland, Ms. Hanauer Friedman, second, discussion on the creation of the Deputy Administrator position for Child Advocacy Center, which, by the way, is that they have the funds for. There being no discussion, all in favor? Oh, wait. Mr.
Sorry,
Wilson?
thank you.
Yes.
Apologize again,
No.
but I don't want us to add positions, whether we have budget or not, because we're still in negotiations. And even though we have the budget, I don't think it's prudent to go ahead and add more positions.
I think that this may be, we will hear from the state's attorney.
Good evening, everyone. So I have seated with me Dr. Lisa Liggins, who is our CAC director, our new CAC director. Welcome. So we are not asking for a new position. This is a upgrade and a change in the personnel structure of our Children's Advocacy Center based on a retirement and based on Dr. Lisa's coming into this agency and seeing a need for a different personnel structure. And so I'm going to let her talk about that. But I also would add that this position, none of the positions at the Children's Advocacy Center are AFSCME positions. So this has absolutely nothing to do with contract negotiations.
Good evening. One of the reasons that I wanted to create the position is because when I started on February 3rd of this year, by February 10th, we had 4 grants that were due that I was responsible for. And no one knew how to write those grants. Not one person, and every salary and everything that we do in that building is grant funded. And so the way that I think about the structure of CAC is that one person should not know everything about the finances and how to write the grant, because what happened when that occurred to CAC and I came on board, there was no one, not even anyone at the county, who could teach me how to write the grants. So we were stuck. And my thought was there should be two people in the state's attorney's office. We should all know together what's going on at CAC. And we should all know what that money means, how to write it, what to do with it, how to answer questions. And there are still things every day that we're learning because we're both new. And the one person that was with me the entire time, helping me untangle the money, figure out the grants, write the narratives, get everything together, late nights, was the person that I would like to be the deputy administrator. It's a deserved position for her, but most importantly, we both know how to write the grants. We are both responsible for paying the bills. Mind you, the bills weren't paid for 4 months. So we were in a position where we didn't even have the rent paid at CAC. All of the salaries are very low, which we will tolerate as long as we know the budget, how to pay it, what to do with the grants, how to write grants. We're doing fundraising. So we're doing a lot of things to compensate and to help our budget and to keep our doors open. But the one thing that I kindly ask of you is to approve this position. It's the right position for CAC because it will not only hold me accountable, but it holds our budget accountable as well with me. So I'm not the only one doing it.
And I'm going to add, so I'm the chair of the governing board. That's why I'm sitting up here. And the Children's Advocacy Center is not a general corporate fund. It's entirely grant funded. And Dr. Lisa and Elizabeth, who is the proposed person to fill this position, have been doing amazing things with regards to fundraising and increasing the visibility of the Children's Advocacy Center. And I appreciate also that Michelle has been assisting by sharing a lot of that information on the county social media as well. There's a fundraiser coming up actually at the Texas Roadhouse where Dr. Lisa has arranged that we get a percentage of the funds for a dinner on April 23rd. So everybody mark your calendars, go have dinner at Texas Roadhouse. And also we have an open house coming up, which we will share so y'all can come and see what happens at the Children's Advocacy Center. And we are also working with our police departments to get them to increase their financial support of the agency. So any increase in salaries that come about with this request will be completely resolved through those increases in fundraising and in contributions from the police departments, and if necessary, contributions from my office as well. So I don't think that's anything you need to worry about. Frankly, I think this is really just very administrative. It doesn't affect anything really at all. And so I think this is something you can easily sign off on.
Thank you. JJ, you had your hand up?
Yeah, did I misunderstand you, Madam State's Attorney? I thought you said it doesn't create a new position.
Right.
Okay, there's a flow chart or an organization chart that shows an additional position. I think that's where some of the confusion is coming from.
Correct. And I don't...
So it shows currently at the CAC, we have a director.
I didn't make the flow chart.
I know, I'm just going to tell you what we have here.
I know.
It says CAC director, family advocate, forensic interviewer / community educator, and multidisciplinary team coordinator is the current setup. And then for the proposed, it simply adds to those positions the deputy administrator. The proposed chart is incorrect, right?
Correct. We have 4
So you
staff
would still
members.
have
now,
4 staff members.
Right, we have 4 staff members. And
Thank you
if we
very
were
much.
to increase the number of staff that we had, again, this is not a general corporate fund department. It is entirely grant funded or donation funded. And so if we had enough money to add staff, then that wouldn't, again, be anything that would affect your bottom line.
Dr. Furtado.
I just wanted to say welcome to you, Dr. Liggins Chambers, and I think this seems like a smart proposal in a lot of different ways. But welcome, and thank you for the work that you've already been doing on behalf of our county.
Thank you.
Mr. Esri.
A quick follow-up to Mr. Farney's question. So the person you have in mind for this is currently the family advocate, is that correct? Okay, so that position, as of right now, would sit empty. And then, not that work wouldn't be getting done, but on the books, you could say that position is empty and the work's getting done, but it's just empty because that person has basically kind of a new upgraded job title of the deputy administrator.
Well, we are interviewing, and by trade, I'm a psychologist, so I can do some family advocacy work. I don't mind, getting my hands into other positions in the building. But so I won't say that we're going to leave it empty. We have to have that work done for the children. So we'll all just compensate until we have the right candidate. Does that sound cool? Good.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. And thank you, John, for asking that question, because I was misdirected by the material in front of me. So thank you very much, and I'm glad you're here to help the children. Thank you.
And we expect you to have dinner at the Texas Roadhouse, Mr. Wilson.
Well, I like eat at Texas Roadhouse, yes. Well, Bunny's or Texas Roadhouse, I don't know which. Yeah.
Well, I would appreciate.
Okay, all right.
I would.
Whoops.
I would appreciate all of you coming to Texas Roadhouse. We have the open house. I would love to see the county there. We have a golfing event that's going to be coming up as well. For those of you who play golf, we're going to have that in Muhammad. And we have a whole host of other things coming up, so get ready.
Thank you. And I on behalf of the board, welcome. Okay, I think we're ready to vote. All in favor of the proposal, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passed. Get out there and write those grants. All right. Moving on to items 2A and B, adjustment of the HR generalist position. Oh, can we get a motion for items 2A and B? Mr. Thorsland and Jamala for second. Thank you. Administrator,
Is that an omnibus motion for both?
I think so. Sure. Ms. Jett.
Yes. Sorry, I meant to apologize earlier for my extra casual attire. It's packing week in the executive's office, so I think I'm covered in a layer of dust as well. Okay, so these two go together. We want to bring back the HR associate position. It used to exist, went out of service probably 10, 15 years ago, I think. I updated the job description, but it's the same general concept. And then an upgrade in the HR generalist position, because I would like that position to take over supervisory responsibility of the HR associate, the payroll specialist, and the insurance specialist. Those three positions, which I currently supervise directly myself now. This is our continued attempt at creating an HR division within the executive's office to appropriately handle the workload that we currently have and is growing on a regular basis. So I'm not asking for any money. I can do this with the budget that already exists. We have a vacant position that would be transitioned into the HR associate position. And Travis and I took less than the allocated COLA to ensure that we had the funding that we needed in the existing budget.
Thank you for that. Discussion, Ms. Locke, Chair Locke.
I guess my only question is about the admin work. We're creating the position by basically converting an admin into something. How's all that work going to get picked up, and are we asking too much of our admin staff is my only concern.
So there's a couple different pieces to that. A good part of the admin's work was actually HR work that no one else had time for. So that position would keep that chunk of work. The admin position that's being converted also did a lot of bill paying from CARF, which was very awkward and makes much more sense for the finance specialist to do it, as they're the one who's actually in CARF and understands how CARF works. So we've transitioned that work over to them. The HR associate position and the grant coordinator the grant coordinator is, and the HR associate would be trained on how to clerk board and committee meetings, which is really our biggest kind of outlier on a task. So we would go from 3 people who could clerk meetings to 4, which is the most that we've had since I've been here, and would make a big difference with just how active you guys are and how many task force you like to create and how many meetings they need to have. So I think that we have addressed the main concerns, and I actually envision this being providing relief for the remaining 2 admin assistants that we will have.
I guess my, just looking at with our remaining 2, one is Megan and one is within facilities, correct? And is there anything that can make the person in facilities have to do executive's office work, or?
Well, yeah, well, facilities is the executive's
Okay.
office.
All right.
So there's that. And that position actually up until this year was in the executive's office. We experimented with moving it into the facilities. I think that there's room on that person's plate as just the facilities admin assistant to pick up some other things. So yes, the answer to your question is yes, they can do other
And if we're
things.
asking people to pick up other things, are we looking at regrading or at least re-evaluating their job criteria?
No, it's still
Just
admin
asking them
assistant
more?
work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Furtado got her hand up first. Sorry, JJ.
So one, just anecdotally, I was a grant coordinator for 6 years, and one of my job duties for a public agency was clerking the board. So like that is not uncommon. I don't want to put her on the spot, but I do think we are all very protective of our Megan. And I'm going to just flat out ask you, Megan, are you okay with this plan?
Blink twice if she's holding something over your head. You realize my boss is sitting next to me.
As I said, Megan, we're all very protective of you.
We have spoken to Megan at length. We are also very protective, which is why we are increasing the number of people who can clerk meetings, because that is the biggest concern that we have. Megan and Mary both have picked up additional duties while we have the admin assistant position vacant. We are compensating them for that additional work, and we appreciate them very much for being team players in that sense. But I do expect that once the HR associate comes on board, we would be taking things off of their plates at that point.
Okay. Mr. Farney?
Again, just making sure our organization charts are correct here. On the current organization chart, there are 2 administrative assistants. On the proposed chart, there is only 1. There are net 0 new positions.
Yeah, so again, that's just the issue around that Mary's admin assistant position is technically from the facilities budget, so it's not reflected in this budgetary org chart. But in terms of responsibilities, we're all commingling. And so, yes, I checked the budgets for the last couple of years, and we have had no expansion in the executive's office. In fact, we've had the decrease since moving the 1 administrative assistant position out of our budget and into the facilities budget. So all of our changes have been within the bounds of what we already had.
Okay, thank you for explaining all that. Are there any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor of the proposal signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Appreciate your going to this has been a while trying to get this all done. Thank you.
Can I just say one more thing now that I've gotten what I wanted? So
Oh,
you can't take it back. I just want to, no, Robert's rules, you cannot. And Megan will back me up on that. I know she will. As the person who does the JEC, and I fully appreciate very much your frugality around position making, but I would encourage you to think of it in a slightly different manner. Creating positions just creates options for department heads. Creating a position is not the same as creating and funding a position. So I would just ask that, when department heads are asking for new positions, but they're not asking for money, that you be open-minded that what they're trying to do is they're trying to come up with creative ways to address their staffing issues. And if the request doesn't include a significant monetary increase to it, that there's really no harm in giving them, again, more tools in their toolkit for how to address their staffing issues and how to make their office operate in an optimal format. I'm with you all the way up until, again, when they start asking for money for all their positions, that's a different conversation. But if they're just saying, I just need more options for the kinds of positions that I can offer, that's an easy win for us in terms of our current scenario and being able to adapt to it. So,
thank you. Executive Summers wishes to speak to the issue.
The specific part of this new position or position swap that makes me feel better, I'm sure it will help me sleep better at night. We currently have no backup for our payroll accountant or our insurance specialist. We have one payroll accountant for the entire county. And she's great. I'm glad she's not ready to retire, but it's just not appropriate for an entity the size of Champaign County to have all of that fall on one person. And you can have things that can cause that person to leave immediately or to, even if they're sick. Leanne cannot take a vacation during payroll periods because she has to be there to make sure that our employees are paid. And this change will provide the office with the flexibility to provide coverage for those two positions. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Summers. And I think we've kind of heard quite a bit about the need for flexibility in our staffing. Moving on to item 3, appointments, reappointments. I'd like to make an omnibus motion for items 3A through K. And Mr. Cagle makes the motion. I'm looking for a second. Maybe Ms. Rogers will second. Thank you. All of these have a term from May 1st to April. Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron. I haven't read the motion
But
yet.
the second one does not have the same term. B does not have the same term.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
So if you want to do an omnibus,
Yeah,
I guess
okay.
you can,
we
but you're
will.
going to need to specify that one doesn't have the same term.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for, that was my oversight. And
If I might make a friendly amendment, all the ones on page 2 do have the same term.
I was going to get to that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. The following, okay. Resolution appointing Justin Learcamp to Broadlands Longview Fire Protection District, Patricia Chancellor to the Eastern Prairie Fire Protection District, Lorenzo Macedo Hernandez to Edge Scott Fire Protection District, Jeff White to Ivesdale, Kenny During to Ludlow, Ken Osterber to Ogden Royal, Brooke Moore to Ogden Royal, Alan Holt to Pasodum, Clifford Gorman to Philo, Frederick Siebold to Sodoris, and the exception, all of those have the term May 1st through this year through April 30th of 2028, and Kenneth Miller to Broadlands Longview Fire Protection District, unexpired term ending on May 30th, 2027. Ms. Lokshin
Just to point out, Aaron also pointed out H has a different term. Brookmore ends 4/30/26.
Oh, for goodness sakes, you're right. How do these get out of order like that? Okay, with that noting that exception, any discussion, or let's see, we've already had a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously. Moving to the next page, the resolution appointing Blake Coons. Oh, wait a minute. County Executive Summers, do you want to specify who would be for the Sangamon Valley Fire Protection
Yeah,
District?
you're correct. It is Blake Coons.
Okay. And items L through T. Oh, no, they don't all expire. Okay. Or through R. Resolution appointing Blake Coons to Sangamon, Valley Fire Protection District, Bernie Maxim to Scott Fire Protection District, Daniel Amon to St. Joseph, William Wilkin to Thomasboro, Roger Hayden to Tolono, Kevin Harden to Tolono, and Todd Courtney to Windsor. Can we get a motion? Tom Sexton, Lorraine to second. Thank you. Discussion to the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? That motion passes. Thank you. Following will be taken separately. Resolution appointing Adam Sharp to the Lower Big Slough Drainage District, unexpired term ending 8/31/26. Mr. Esri, second by Beth Van Theranot. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion passes. Resolution appointing David Waters to Yearsley Cemetery Association, unexpired term ending June 30th, 2030. Motion by Mr. Esri, second by Mr. Sexton. Discussion to the motion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion passes. Thank you. There's a vacant appointments list on the website, and I've already rambled about that. The monthly fees in the packet. Item C, number 1, amending the schedule of authorized positions in the Probation and Court Services Department. Motion would somebody please make a motion? Beth Van Theranot, second by Dan Wiggins. Thank you. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Farney.
I just want to point out that the very last part of Director Sider's memo, if this grant money runs out, she'll be coming to the county board for us to fund that.
We'll have to see what happens when that happens. Ms. Locke, Chair Locke.
If this grant money runs out, the drug court would also not be funded, and that's where this would all be coming from anyway. So we'd have bigger problems.
Dr. Furtado.
Yeah, I'm used to the university budgeting model, and there's just a broad understanding that every position that's on soft money is contingent upon that soft money.
Mr. Farney?
I'm just pointing that out because in today's world, lots of grants that people have depended on for decades are disappearing.
I think that we're going to be in for a roller coaster ride.
Ms. Reitz would like to speak.
Oh, the state's attorney.
Okay, so this is a position that is funded by adult redeploy funds from the state of Illinois. This is not a federal grant. There is no federal money here. Entirely state funded. Adult redeploy has been begging us for years to accept this state money. It is solid money. That we are using this money to expand drug court. And speaking on behalf of Ms. Siders, we cannot expand drug court if we do not have more people to supervise the individuals who are in drug court. She currently has one probation officer who does that, and the AOIC, the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts, has to approve her staffing, and they have approved this addition to be funded by, again, state funding entirely. So I do not see this as being money that's going to go away anytime soon because, as I said, they have been begging us for years to accept these funds. So hope that helps. And also they, at some point, will be providing funding for me, for my office, to add an additional prosecutor. And they already are funding an additional assistant public defender in the public defender's office.
Well, that's certainly welcome news. Okay, any further discussion to the motion? All in favor? Thank you, by the way. You're welcome. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Oppose? That motion passes. Next on the agenda is resolution approving the proclamation designating the week of May 4th as National Correctional Officer Week. Ms. Greer, would you like to make that motion? Good. Just wanted to make sure nobody falls asleep in my session here. Second by Ms. Rodriguez. We haven't heard from you this evening. Okay, second by Ms. Rodriguez. All in favor? Oh, Ms. Locke?
I just have one point of discussion. I'd like for us to not have this or the next one on consent agenda so that next week we can read them aloud.
Agreed, and I that's why I didn't go through that, but thank you. All in favor of the correctional officer's motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Very well. Motion passes, but it will be not on the consent. Next, resolution approving the proclamation designating the week of May 11th as National Police Week. Motion by, Okay, Jeff wants to make the motion, and it looks like Mr. Sexton is begrudgingly seconding. Discussion on the proclamation designating Police Week. None? Let's go ahead and vote on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Okay, that motion passes. Next item is E, County Board of Health Ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the Health Ordinance of Champaign County, adopting Champaign County Public Health Department Retail Food Program Enforcement Policy. Motion by Ms. Van Ischternot, who kind of pointed out the difference in the caucus. I need a second. Mr. Thorsland. Gosh, wait a minute. Have you? Okay, all right. Second by Thorsland. Discussion on the motion, Mr. Esri.
Thanks. I have some issues with this one, and the biggest one, I guess, is the difference of what we're replacing. I look on the county website under health ordinance. I can find what's referenced, the ordinance 969. but I don't easily find the 975 or especially the 2018 ordinance 2018-9. And if I'm correct, unless something has been slipped in past me knowing it, which if it has, it has. Back in 2018, when we adopted ordinance number 2018-9, it mentioned in the first page on 123 of our packet, it mentions that 2018-9 amended chapter 5, and that's dealing with placards for inspections. And if I remember correct, back when we had a pretty good discussion on this, the county board said they are not required to be posted in the county. CUPHD requires them. The county said no, thank you. You don't have to post them. Well, if I'm remembering correct, it also mentions that this changes in it. Again, on page 123, it says that it's a change to section 5-5. Well, if you read in 5-1, I believe, of the proposed 2025 ordinance that we're asking to be adopted, it basically, you read through 5, it says that it's a requirement. Well, that's not just in 5.5 that it mentions it as being changed. So it would have been nice to have had reference to what is being changed to be able to compare. And if that is correct, that this in 5 is now requiring those placards, I have a big problem with that. And I will go back over the reasons. I believe Mr. Storb is one of them. I believe Ms. Coward, of course, maybe Ms. Furtado were on the board with me when this discussion occurred, and I believe Executive Summers was a member of this board too at the time. Some of the reasons that the county board at that time decided to not require them to be posted was, one of the biggest ones, it's a snapshot in time. You get an inspection, the next hour, something could happen in that restaurant, that food facility, to cause an illness. Or they would fall out of compliance were the inspector to come the next hour. The inspectors themselves, it's human nature. If I'm the inspector, I'm having a bad day. I've already had right or wrong, I've already had a bad interaction with the person that I'm going to inspect. I may be more of I'm going to get them for all I can. Whereas if I'm having a great day or I've already had interactions with this person, this facility, things are going, went well, I may just be more like, yep, things look good. I don't go for the nitpicky. That's human. We all tend to do that. You can't, granted, in a professional position like this, you should try and block that out, but it does happen. The speed of inspections. Back then, there was a big problem with getting speedy inspections out in the county. I don't know if that's still a case, but I started a text conversation with some previous board members, and Mr. Goss, Jim Goss was one of them. And he mentioned how, now this is permits. This isn't inspections, but this is permits. He says can still take 6 months out in the county. So I don't know if that truly relays and relates to inspections, but are they getting done in a quick, timely manner? And re-inspections, are those going to happen quickly? There was also the idea of, in the smaller communities, these smaller restaurants, they live by word of mouth, largely, more so than you could say those within the larger community of, say, Champaign-Urbana. Champaign-Urbana, they have people passing by a lot more than, say, Ivesdale or Sedoris or Ogden. They're gonna, if they're doing something wrong that's making somebody sick, people in the area are gonna know. If they're serving food that's fine. People are going to know and are going to go there. If it makes the news that some restaurant, say in Ogden, gets shut down or gets a yellow placard, where's the news saying, oh, they cleaned it up the next day and they're good to go again? And I don't know that the placards specifically mention what was wrong or how many items, minute items, were added up to a yellow inspection, as opposed to, oh, if they just had soap, I don't know exactly, but say they had a soap dispenser that wasn't full. If that, I don't know if that would be one, but let's just say it is a check mark against them. And that one little thing made them get a yellow, and now they have to post it. That again, it's a snapshot in time. It's yes, we're going to have inspections, but does it really do any good? If you're shut down, you're shut down. Now you can fight it. You can fight that, but that's going to end up going to court. So I would, most cases, if not all cases. But if it's a yellow, I guess I don't see the point of it, especially out in the county. We aren't Champaign-Urbana. Champaign-Urbana can do as they wish. We contract with CUPHD. Just to make it easier on them is not a good enough reason for me to vote for this. And again, it was mentioned the last time, I believe it was last year, that we renewed our contract with CUPHD. In and of itself, that's another reason in my account to potentially look outside of CUPHD to contract with. Say maybe a neighboring county's health department. At least explore that idea when the time comes. So that's where I stand on this. I will be a no vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Asprey. Ms. Lakshan.
Actually, what I was going to say actually picks up on what Mr. Asprey said for part of this. The word of mouth is a big factor in this for me, in that I have a restaurant, a beloved restaurant to me in Champaign that recently was yellow carded. And because it did lay out specifically what the infractions were, I looked at it and was like, that's not a big deal to me. That did not stop me from going to that place. So it allowed me to make an informed decision, seeing what the infraction was, seeing like why they received a citation or whatever, and to make that choice and say, yeah, that's not for me an issue. I just think we should be giving people that visible choice and allowing them to make that decision for themselves.
Thank you, Ms. Lakshan. And Ms. Locke?
I got a couple of points. When you ask about when do re-inspections happen, on page 137, section 3.1 says that you can, the permit holder whose permit has been suspended can seek a re-inspection, and it's within a reasonable period of time. I know that that's not within 2 days, within 4 days. It's not articulable, but reasonable means reasonable, right? Like, so it can happen, and that's when it's been suspended. That doesn't say the legal terms of art. I know they're terrible. I'm with you, but also people that travel through have a right to be informed of what they're coming into, and just to like say, well, this is my town, you don't get to know what's been inspected. That's a public record. Like, should somebody be pulling out their phone to like have to like, well, I love to go to dirt bars in the middle of nowhere. Should I be having to pull out my phone to look it up? Other counties require this. Like, we're not, it's information to people so they can make an informed choice. I don't know if Jenny and I have the same favorite restaurant. There is a beloved restaurant that my husband and I also were like, health code violations taste good sometimes. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they taste like roaches in the food, and it's good to see that written on the door so you know to walk out. Or sometimes it tastes like the refrigeration is at 47 degrees. Nothing tastes good when you have Shigella. So I'm going to be a yes on this one.
Dr. Furtado.
While I don't have the angst about placards that my colleague does. I do actually share the one thing that Aaron brought up that actually I do think is really important because I lived through it is that, and I don't think it's through any fault of their own. I think it's just the staffing levels that they have available. This agency has not, their definition of reasonable has not been considered reasonable by restaurant people in the county. I want to just I feel like I need to say this on behalf of our former colleague, Brad Clemens, who this was a major issue for him. I sat through many meetings hearing it seemed to me, reasonable issues with how quickly everything from this agency moves. And I do think that I'm not against having a placard system, but I do think that it would be important for the restaurant owners in our unincorporated areas to also have with that I would need more reassurance upon the ability for that system not to be like, okay, you got a yellow card up there and it sits for a month. I do think, I feel like this is probably not super Democrat of me, but I do think we need to balance. I do think public has the right to know these things, but we also should not be disincentivizing business in our unincorporated area. We as a county have a very vested interest in businesses in our unincorporated area. And so that piece of it, I'm all for the placards if this agency is resolving them in a timely manner. And just my experience of this agency is that's simply not always the case. And again, this is not saying anything bad about the agency. I think they're doing the best they can with the resources that they have. But just to put a fine point, they're understaffed.
Mr. Farney.
My district covers roughly half of this county. Not a single person has ever spoken to me about wanting to have placards in windows. I talk to restaurant owners. They have the same complaints today that they had a year ago, that they had 5 years ago about CU Public Health. They're slow, they're vindictive, they're punitive. CU Public Health closed down high school concession stands at football games, in the middle of a football game, because Unity High School did not have commercial stoves. Stoves weren't even being used, but they didn't have them in the building. No one in the rural areas is coming to us and say, JJ, I can't sleep at night. We have to do this. No one from public health is here explaining to us their reasoning behind doing this. They may have good reasoning. I'd love to hear from them. I see an empty chair. I'm going to be a no vote tonight. If you want to know what people in the areas that are actually affected by this have to say about it, they're going to say, county board, vote this down, leave us alone.
Mr. Cagle. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Cagle, go ahead and we'll get to Ms. Greer.
Appreciate it. A couple things. I'd like to recall that what feels like several hours ago, we were talking about a budget forecast and economic growth slowdown potentials, adding additional barriers for small businesses to start in these areas is not going to be easier with additional red tape. We'll see more stories of restaurants that are closing or not opening because they don't have the right type of freezer, even if they're not freezing food, or if they have a freezer from a previous endeavor. That was another approved public health option. These types of barriers, while I think well-intended, and I think ultimately come from a good place, are not helping, and much like JJ said, are not asked for. And should be something we're considering very heavily as we start to look through some of these, the impact it's going to have on our economic growth.
Ms. Greer?
Okay. From someone that has been through many and many of these inspections, I can just kind of give you all a little insight on how they go. They go very quickly, they go very subjective, and they're not fun at all, okay? For someone that reads the food code in their sleep, I kind of pride myself on knowing all of the food codes until I get an inspector in my kitchen telling me, oh, did you know that there was a new food code? And my question is, where did you hide it? Where is it? Where do I find it? Because I read food codes all the time. Where are they? Well, we just came out with it last year. Did you send me a memo on it, you know? And sometimes they make sense. Most of the times they don't, okay? They really don't, you guys. A spray bottle hanging up on the wall is a food code because it's a chemical, and somehow or another that spray bottle is going to spray itself somewhere near food. It's ridiculous, some of the rules that they have. And if you don't have a responsible person in your building, in your facility that knows all of these codes, it is very easy to get that yellow tag. Very, very easy. And then you read about it in the newspaper and you go, oh my God, they were terrible. And I just ate there last night and I'm going to get sick. But the reality of it is it really wasn't anything that harmed you, but it may have, could have, somewhere down the line, and the inspector said, yes, I'm going to write this up. Yep. So some of these things are just not reality. So as we're voting on that, maybe if this was an agency that was very reliable in their reporting, I would be all for it, but I know all too well that they're not. That's it.
It's been called to my attention that we should probably listen to our state's
Your
attorney.
lawyer is back. We're currently in litigation and we represent the agency that you all are discussing. So my advice would be to, if you don't want to pass this tonight, just simply defer. Please.
Very, Mr. Thorsland?
Thank you, Julia. I was just going to ask if we could table this until we could get maybe the Board of Health, some representative to come in here so we can ask them questions. So, yeah, I think we should just deal with this at a different time. I don't think this is a big pressing issue right now.
That's very well said. Do I hear a motion to table? Go ahead, Ms. Greer, and to reach across the aisle, Mr. Sexton.
We need a specific, can we table this till, say, the June full board meeting, or, right? Or we just table it?
And then we have to vote.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. There's no motion on to table this motion. All in favor of tabling this the current motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? The motion is tabled until such time as we vote it off the table.
Make sure it's clean.
And make sure that it's been wiped with some Clorox. Okay. There is no other business. The chair's report is none. And the items designated for the consent agenda are number 2, A, B, and C, number 3, A through T, and number C. That's what's on the consent agenda. Chair Locke, it is with great pleasure that I return this back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Storr. All right, everybody, thank you for hanging in there. In other business, we have a motion that will be read by Vice Chair Rodriguez.
That's me. I move that we enter into an executive session pursuant to 5 ILCS 120-2C2 to consider collective negotiating matters between Champaign County and its employees or their representatives. I further move that the following individuals remain present: County Executive Steve Summers, Director of Administration Michelle Jett, Budget Director Travis Woodcock, Recording Secretary Megan Robinson, State's Attorney Julia Reitz, and Andrew Beckett. I'm not sure about your title, but please stay.
Is there a second? All right, second by, I saw Aaron Esri. All right, we need a roll call for this one.
Yes.
Esri. Barney.
Yes.
Furtado. Yes. Greer.
Yes.
Hanover Friedman.
Yes.
Lokshin.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Sexton. Yes. Storr.
Yes.
Sollard.
Yes.
Thorsland.
Yes.
Vanich Theronut.
Yes.
Wiggs.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Cagle.
Yes.
Cowart.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes. All right. Are we staying? We're staying in this room. We'll just have to wait for the feed to be cut.
Can we get 2 minutes to
Yeah.
let him wrap up and then let you know when the feed is off?
In 2 minutes, we'll resume.